Thank you for joining me today. A friend recently asked me if I could do his bench seat. This is done very similarly to a normal chair seat, but in this case I'm actually going to be putting a border all the way around, and I'll show you how that's done. So let's see if I can pass on some tricks and tips to you. First thing I'm going to do is remove the bottom cloth. I'm going to try to do that in such a way that I can keep it. So I'm literally just going to ease these up. And when I've got a few eased up, then I'm going to pull them out like this. Use your tools to do the work, not stress your hands. I'm going to work all my way around. I've only done a section, it's up to you how you do these things. Now I'm going to work on the fabric. So this is actually a fake suede. Feels quite nice. The reasons for these holes here is so that when you sit down it releases the air from the foam, otherwise you'd sit on it and the fabric would balloon next to you, so it just keeps it looking smooth. Before you remove anything, take a pencil and just put little marks along where the fabric joins the wood. This is so that if you take the measurements off here and pull it round, you won't have to measure every little part as you go around. Once you have the bottom cloth done, what I usually do is I leave it attached so I can't mislay it, especially when I was working in a big workshop. And then, having made lines all the way around, I'm now going to peel this off. This has been quite badly damaged. He said somebody had spilt water on it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use this as a pattern, which means I'm going to cut just along where the seam is, like this. As I cut up, I'm going to make some marks, one on the corner like that, and then I'm going to carry on cutting round like this, and I'm going to get so far putting those like that across like this. I'll do it where it's actually sewn together like that. Then I'm going to carry on cutting down. Now when I transfer this to the new pattern, I'll put those as V's. I'll put the corner one in as a slit so that the corner lines up. The other thing I'm going to do before I finish is also mark the center mark. So there's that there all the way to the center here, and again I'm just going to put this little line across there, and actually I'll do it a little bit closer on this side so I know which end's which, and the same on the other side like that. Up close to the back edge I'll do the same again, like that and that. This is so that I can line up everything. I'm also going to put a center mark along the back, so I'm going to line up those two seams there, so they're lined up, and here's my center mark for here, exactly the same. These are important. And again, even up on the back here, I'm going to just cut up and make sure it's close to the seam, because that's where your stitch line is going to be. There's my corner, and then on round to the front. This makes life a lot easier if you can use an original template instead of have to make your own. You just got to be cautious while you're doing it. Put that down. So I've just taken this off the right side. Yeah, the right. So I'm going to put an R on there, an F on there, left on there, B for back on there, so that I know which pieces I've got. Now along the back, I put the centre mark in, and I'm actually going to put a mark either side. Just like in dressmaking, you usually have 3 clips for whatever reason. That's what I'm going to do here, so that when I've got all of this sewn together as a band, I don't have to sit and work it all out. It will be obvious to me. I have in the past put the back on the front and the front on the back, and that's a waste of time if you have to unpick it all. So just, you know, be sensible about your markings. This was the fabric that was sent to me. I really wish these companies would send the fabric on a roll, because when it's folded up it creases, and I'm not sure if I can get that out. I'll try, but I don't know. Laid the top out on here, and I'm going to be very generous because it sometimes twists, because you can't put a firm line in this. I'm going to just match up my edges like that, and then cut along the fold. You will find that this kind, if I pull it, it's going to pull that fold over. So you just need to be aware that this is not always the best method of cutting this fabric, but it will work. So that'll be the first piece I need to cut. Now I'm going to lay out the other lengths that I need. I'm only going to roughly cut them for now because I need to be able to work this out. So if I do 2 widths of that, I'll do the same again. I'm going to just double that over and cut that. I usually save as much as I can on fabric, but I think this guy got me a huge amount of fabric, more than I needed. So if I overcut that by, I think, the widths of the fabric, 2 widths, that'd be perfect. One day I might get the whole of this table back. I now have 2 lengths to cut the new cover from. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 2 raw edges together like that and then pull that out so it's nice and flat. You don't want to put the fold on any kind of angle, otherwise you're not going to get everything out the way you want it. And I'm just going to lay this on top. As in dressmaking, I'm going to put this fold on this fold here. Unlike in dressmaking, where you could actually pin everything down, I have that option. So I'm going to pop this down here to hold that fold in place, and this one here to hold that in place. Now, if you're not good at judging a 1/2 inch seam allowance, put a ruler or a tape measure along there and cut towards it. You can put that on the edge there. Works the same way. And if you want to, you can do, say, the top piece first, like that, and then cut the bottom piece up to it. Sometimes that's the better way to go because the fabric does sometimes twist on each other. So I'm just going to do that all the way around this shape so I know I have an exact 1/2 inch allowance. When you come to a corner, just do like little baby steps as you go around like that, so that everything runs smoothly. Otherwise you'll have a funky corner, and then just, as I say, just cut that up. So I'm coming down this side like this, and then as I get to this corner I'm going to shorten the lengths because it's going around like that. Just cut little pieces until you're all the way and joined up. There we go. There's that one joined up, and this one join up too. And that is how you cut this stuff out. Now I've opened this up and made it as even as possible. Now I know that there's a mark here. I would normally put a V in, but I'm actually going to just put a little nick in on all of these like that. And I've got the right side of the fabric up on both pieces so that I know that when I transfer all of these they actually match up. And I'm going to just roll that up slightly like that and carefully pull that on over, re-straighten that up. Now I've got this mark here which is in where it needs to be, and I'm going to put the 3 marks across the back. 1, 2, 3. As I say, they don't go in very far, they just like nick. Pull that on over. Keep these nicks in line, the ones that I've just put in the center, and then work my way to this side and do the same again. Anything that I put in I transfer to the new cover like that. That's the top ready. I've matched up my first cut here to my next cut here, which I'm actually going to put in like that. Once I've done that, I'm going to fold this up. I'm going to serpentine it actually so it stays as even as possible, and then pull this across like that and straighten this part out so I can get the next part cut. This is like the most time consuming bit of this project, to be really honest with you. Again, line everything up, base there, this here, and then I'm going to put my weight back on here and then carry on across like this. Put all 3 marks in, and then there's the first one, and then carry on making that match too. When you get so far, make sure all of these line up and pull everything together so you can finish off the shaping of your piece of fabric. Make sure those are all in line. Put your weight down again and work to the end. Now I'm going to pop the marking in here like that, and I'm going to come to this end, and again I'm actually going to make sure that that's 1/2 inch from the end there. I'm following the shape, so make sure you put the shape in, because if you don't it's going to alter what's going on the back. And that is the back done. I'm going to roll the back piece up with it so that I can't lose it. Do the front and then the 2 sides. This is why you always double check your measurements for seams, because this one's being cut back, and I think I cut it back, although the way that's cut maybe not. I am not going to speculate on that, but I probably did. Pop this here and cut across. So I'm going to start with the bottom here, and I'm going to follow the way that just goes, because it kind of meanders in different directions. It's for the most part smooth, but then it comes in like here and then it goes back out, so I don't want to make a mistake. Something you'll learn as you put these things together is sometimes when you sew the seams together and then the top stitching, it pulls it in tighter. These don't look to be too bad, and then of course it's been stretched because of the way it's been pulled onto the furniture. So what I'm going to do, this was the left one, but I want it to be facing down, and this is the left side because it's wider at the front than it is at the back. So I'm going to line my markings up like this and pin it in the seam allowance, not anywhere else, otherwise you'll ruin your piece of fabric if you're using something like this. So that's that one. Discard that, and let's see what the next one is that comes up. This is the right side, and again just match the parts up. I don't seem to have got one on the front for some reason, so I'm just going to put the back one on like that. But I will put this, oh yeah I do, I've got one here. For whatever reason I didn't mark that side properly. Maybe that's here. Yeah, I think that actually goes on the corner because that was the only mark that I've got. So I'm going to put that on the corner or close to it so I can sew it all together. Then I'm going to pin on the front and the back, or the back and the front, whichever comes up next. That's the front. Right sides together, and again pin it in place. On this one I'm actually going to start on my center mark, which I remember is not quite on the center. Having pinned it, I'm actually going to sew from the top like I usually do, and I'm going to pop the first one underneath. Now there's my first nick here, and there's the one here, so I'm going to just line those back up. Seeing as I took the pin out, I'm going to slide it under the foot. I found the center, which is here, which I'm going to pinch together. I'm also going to find the center between that and here. Now the only thing with this kind of fabric is it slips more so than normal fabrics. So I've got my pinched center here, and I'm actually going to pinch it a little bit closer and work towards here, then repinch everything. You could, if you wanted, pin it. I just find that pinching it and keeping it taut works just as well. Put the needle down and just realign again. There we are. So thirds might be the best way to go. And I'm not actually pulling it, I'm just keeping it equal to itself. Now every now and again it just goes out of line slightly, but that's fine, that might be just the way it was cut. Needle down again, rework everything, and sew again. To make sure all of this is flat, if this gets caught up, it knocks everything out of line. And now I've got the center here. I think that's going to go in fine. The thing is, with an even V foot, you can't just pull everything through. You can put a little bit of tautness on, which will hold it firm. I can feel the fabric moving because it's not straight under here. So I'll straighten that out and it should feed through nicely. Now, here's my center mark. I'm going to just sew up towards the center mark. Pull that pin out and then realign to the end again. There's my center. Take it a little bit closer. Just make sure that's going smooth. Here's my last nick here. I'm just going to finish around that point on this first side. Remove the pin and finish there. So although I've got the side pinned in, I'm actually going to work along the back now. Remove the pin. I'm going to make sure that those two nicks line up again like I did earlier. Slide them underneath. This is a little bit awkward. I'm going to line them right next to each other and the needle. So once I've got my half-inch mark, I'm going to drop that down and then the foot down. Some fabrics, when you first, especially if you're not using a foot like this, will just slide the bottom underneath as it goes down and you end up not being in line. Back stitch just a couple of stitches. Now the reason this is on top is so that you can pull it in against the border. The border is going to be straight. Don't pull anything, just let it run. Remove a few stitches, pull the top back and carry on going. As soon as it starts coming out of line, just pull it back into line. Now with a bit of luck, these will all line up. Pinch that together, which pulls it out, and then just sew on. It's all even on here, on the outside seam. I'm not pulling the fabric. If I pull it, you'll see it stretches. I'm not doing that, just letting it run. Now as I come here, it's just slightly moving. I'm going to just pull it back a little bit, put the needle down, find my marks, realign, and sew. Now you'll sometimes find that the fabric automatically pulls back as you get there, which in this case it is, but keep straightening this out because that helps it keep straight on the back. Put the needle down, holds everything in place, realign everything, because if this isn't flat, it will pull everything out of shape as you get there. I'm going to take that needle out because it's facing the wrong way. Got all those nicks in line, and I'm going to sew across them. As I get there, put the needle down, realign everything, so just halfway along from there. Straighten all this fabric out and then carry on sewing to the end. Now as I'm coming into this side here, where this last one is, it's gaping. This one's longer. Shouldn't be, probably isn't, it's probably just the curvature. So I'm just going to pinch that together and just twist my hand slightly like that, and that will pull the top fabric against the bottom one without really pulling it too much. It's just a little trick that you learn. So now I'm holding the fabric at this far end because then I can guide it easily into shape. And as I get closer, I release that twist and it should all go into place. Now my hand's more or less flat, move that. The nicks are in line, pinch that really tightly. I'm pulling a little bit back so I can see where the nicks are, flatten the fabric out, and I'm just going to finish where they are, then they can't move. And back a couple of stitches. That's the front and the back into position. I'm going to line in one of the sides. Now I haven't got this attached, it's still open. There's a reason for that. We'll come to that in a minute. We're going to start here. The border here is folded back so I can't catch it. My nicks are together, which I'm going to pop underneath here and put at the 1/2 inch mark, pop that down, foot down, and then sew. It's only a short length to here. I'll still half it because this is a rounded shape and this is straight, so I know that it goes in the right line. Okay, and then right back here where the nick is where I'm going to put it. As I get closer, I take the pin out, make sure the nicks line up. And as you can see, I'm pulling the fabric up because it's actually starting to go around the corner. So I want the fabric to twist into place. It doesn't go very far around the corner, just enough that it's twisting up. And I'm going to finish there and back. Right, I'm going to go back to this corner, pull this round so it's like that. I'm going to pinch the two new raw edges on the side into shape. It's awkward because you end up having to push it that way. And I'm going to put my finger in here to where the 1/2 inch mark is, and where the 3 pieces match is where I'm going to put my seam. So that might actually be less than 1/2 inch, but we'll find out in a minute. I'm going to put a pin in there just to hold it straight because it keeps twisting. That's the new seam here. You can see this is angles. It should match up. And then, as I say, pop that in there like that to the halfway mark. I'm thinking I might actually have 1/2 inch seam. Pull this forward. I dislike using this or leather. Not so much leather, but certainly this one. Now whatever this seam is, should be the same on all of them. I made sure everything was the same. Now there's 2 angles and I need to bring the top one into the bottom. So I'm going to keep the bottom piece of fabric flat, do a couple of stitches, and then slowly bring the top one into the bottom. Now as I get to this angle here, I'm going to ease it the other way. So the bottom one's flat on the 1/2 inch mark. I'm twisting the top one into fit. Just keep that 1/2 inch as steady as you can. You have to twist both fabrics into shape. Now let's see if that works. In this case, because I'm coming round from the back to the front, I'm actually going to put both seams forward. And that is because when you look at the side of it, it should hide where the seam is. It just kind of tucks the seam under. And pop that back under here, like that. Try to flatten my seam out as much as I can before I get there. And then sew around this corner and make it as smooth as possible. Now, with your top finger, you're going to have to pull it down like that so that it goes into shape. and then pull everything into shape. Now the seam underneath, you can't really see. I'm actually pushing the seam underneath that way so that it doesn't pleat. If I leave it flat, it's going to pleat. So I'm going to take a couple more stitches into the seam, put the needle down, pick the foot up, twist the seam right underneath so that the top is level with the top of here. Should be. It's kind of warped a little bit, but not too much. And then I'm going to drop the foot down and come on round and finish here. I'm going to go over the stitches I initially put in by about an inch. Let's see how that went in. There's that. It's a little bit off here, but it'll be fine. When I push it through there, that's what it looks like. So I'm going to go on and do the next one exactly the same way. Just give it its 1/2 inch allowance, because if I've got one right, all of them are right. Pop that underneath. I'm going to go forward and back at the beginning and then carry on down. I always work from the top, and then I know that both of the seams at the top are even. There's a little bit of shaping, but not very much, so I'll just allow that to do its own thing. Forward and back at the bottom. Now this one, also going to put this facing forward so that when you look at it, it's nice and even. And then I'll put the other ones facing back when I get to the other side. So again, I'm going to pull that forward and then push that in. Now this one, I'm going to have to twist up like that, otherwise it won't go in at all. And with a bit of luck, I won't need to undo here. Sometimes you do. Pull the fabric back into shape. Just make sure that the top of this is level with the top of the base, otherwise it'll pucker. And then ease it all round, and then back into line as you get there. Over stitch about an inch and work to the next one. So these ones are facing forward, and this is the side I didn't actually pin in. Just put the seam in here, and there's my nick, and there's my nick because it was right on the corner. And my seam is facing forward. Well, it's facing forward on the chair, not back towards me. Now the only thing is that needs to be pulled into shape, because this nick and this nick are right now not in line. But hopefully as I go around the corner, it will even out. Yeah, it does. So as I pull this in, it's a little bit tight on the front, but I can pull that in. Just make sure it's even and not ripply underneath. If it ripples underneath, you've got a big problem. So I'm going to do 1, 2 stitches like that, and then pull that back into line. And as I come on round, it will straighten out. That's because I did the front differently to how I did the other side. There we go. Get a little bit underneath, and then it starts pulling in properly. I think what I'll do, because of the way it's gone, I'll put this in and then pull it in. Now I've just put the seam in, which comes to here. This actually is slightly off, but it will come in, and I'm just going to finish on this corner here. This is the last one to go in. And just so. Here again, I'm going to push that forward, so it's like on the other side. As you get there, make sure that the fabric's going in the right way, and then ease the fabric into place and over stitch. Right, now for the top stitching, I'm going to start at the centre back. You see there? Fold this down over the stitching, all of that underneath. Just make sure the fabric from here is still facing that way. Line the top stitching here up somewhere. There's a little groove here. I'm going to line it on there. So that's probably about 1/4 inch from the top. I'm going to extend the stitch to a number 5 so it's nice and big, and I'm just going to allow that to sew into place. I will keep moving that down so everything's nice and smooth as I go. Basically, I'm letting the feet of the sewing machine do the work. Just keep pulling it and lining it up every few inches because of the shape. I'm just keeping the bottom seams going down, and I'm just easing this around. It's really awkward even for me to see, to be really honest. It's like a little window. But as you come round the corner, all of your fabric will just start laying flat again. There we go. Work on round. Now I'm coming to the end. You see my tag sticking up? I'm going to just see if I can pull that through to the other side. The reason is I'm going to be sewing over it. It doesn't want to come through. So I'm going to just cut that right hard up to there and then just sew over it. Just a few stitches and finish off. And then the other side. I've got a little thread that escaped, so I'm going to just cut that back too so it doesn't show. Now I've got the cover and I'm going to put the back to the back and front to the front and just ease it on, just like I would any other chair. I'm going to make sure the seams are facing the right way, like that, and the same to this side. Sometimes you just have to ease one corner on, and then I go to the back. And that fits quite nicely. Pull it over, there we go. That side and that side, I think that's right. Looks about right. I think I might put some more Dacron in. Basically because this side doesn't fill it out properly. Always check your work. If you need to do something, then get it done first. And another layer of Dacron all the way down to the front. Now you can see where my marks are here. Theoretically that should pull all the way to the mark. Because I've put the extra Dacron on, it's not going to. I'm going to allow, just to start off with, I'm going to pull it in at the back here. I think that's even, both sides. So I think that's even. I'm going to just pull that over to about just shy of an inch. Because this stuff kind of rips, I'm going to put one either side. Make sure you don't leave any staples on underneath. Turn it around and do the same on the other side. Just make it shy about an inch on the top. Again, put one each side to hold it. Okay, I'm going to flip it and have a look to see what's going on here. Now it's nice and plump up here. I actually like that. I'm going to do that all the way across. Once you're happy with your position of where you're putting everything, just pull it all in. And because you've got this mark, you can just go evenly all the way across. Now unlike most upholstery, you just pull it in as straight up as you can to wherever you've decided to go. It's easier if you put a staple in and then push the rest with your fingers up to the line you want. Then pull the next part in like that. Hold it with your fingers so it's straight. You can see it kind of gapping here, don't worry about that. Straighten those up and infill. When you're happy with your little area, straighten out the bottom cloth. Pull it from the base here and up. Wriggle it to where you want it. Coming into the corner, I'm actually going to start in the middle like I did before, from this end up, and I'm going to work forward, put this corner in first. Pull that in, curve it, then work this in as evenly as you can. I'm going to pop that here so it goes in at that angle because the seam's there. Pull this up so it follows. Now as I'm looking at this corner, it could actually come in just a little bit more to make it smoother. So I'm going to take these out and pull them in and then redo the corner here. Now I don't like the way this kind of goes in, so I'm actually going to cut down like that on both sides. It won't make much difference because I'll take some of that seam out as well. Because once that's folded in, it will hide. Okay, so I'm going to fold that down there and that up and in like that. Now I'm aligning this screw hole up here. From looking at this bottom cloth, there's a piece that comes in here that it's been resting on, so I'm sure that that will go in fine. I'll just put an extra couple of staples in to make sure it holds flat. I'm going to work this corner in first. I'm going to pull that back up to my mark, just straight, and then into this corner here. I'm going to work the corner in first because it seemed to be a little bit tighter on the front than I thought it was. I'm going to pull this around. As you can see, as I've come around this curved edge, the fabric starts rippling. That's absolutely okay. Normally I would put pleats in, but I'm not going to worry too much. Judging by the back, I think that's going to go in okay. Just let that ripple slightly. And because I'm taking it all the way back, once this goes on, it will hide anything there is. And as you see, there's a, well, you probably can't see, but there's a mark here where the frame goes. So ease that in here. Again, that's ripply. If the ripples are too big, I will pleat it in, but if they're not too bad, I won't. So I'm just going to pull this into here, and it almost comes into this corner where I had marked it. It's probably because there's not that much filler on the corners. I'm going to pull that down like that. On this one, I don't actually have to cut anything back. It folds in nicely. On the front, I had to. I'm going to just pull that in. Having secured it, I'm just going to pop this down. Again, I'm going to line up the screw hole here. Right, I'm going to just carry on all the way along the front here. I think that might be the best way of tackling this project. Again, when you've got to the side, start in the middle. I think I can actually pull it a little bit tighter on this side. It won't make any difference in the centre. The reason is there seemed to be a little bit more give on the top. So I'm going to just pull this right in. That's weird. Both ends will cut the same. That sometimes happens. You'll find that upholstered items sometimes only go in right the first time. Now I'm going to pull it into that corner. I had to take some of that fabric out earlier. I think that'll be okay. I might have to pull that across. I think it'll be fine. It's not like I pulled it one way. I've been pulling it straight up, but sometimes it just doesn't go in right. Like I did before, I'm going to cut some of this out. I'm going to have to work this way with this. It doesn't want to do what it's meant to do. Sometimes that happens, and I'll just have to explain to the customer that the choice of fabric compared to the original, which was a softer fabric, they don't always go in the same way. That's a bit irritating actually. I'm going to have to rework this whole side. If I can pull it back, it might go in better. And I will be able to pull it all the way up here, which is okay. Upholstery is not a done deal until it's put in properly. And this side isn't rippling as much either. Just a bit strange. But anyway, I'll take those out and move them all up and see if it goes in better. I didn't like the way this was going in, so I'm actually going to start pulling here and over. And I know that it was getting closer to my marks, so I'm just going to do that and ease that in. I can work the back in later. I'm going to pull that down and round. So I'm going to fold everything in and bring that round like that and secure it on that pencil mark. Now with luck, pull that one back like that and it should ripple and go in nicely. So here's my center. I've got that on my mark and I'm just going to ripple that into place here. Now because this is arched, you can see it gapes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in at the center of each side to where it needs to come in. So I've put that one in. I'm going to halve the distance between here and here. Put the next one in. And again until it's all in. Now I've got that side in, I'm going to do exactly the same on this side. Now this one might need to be pulled over into the center, but I'll look at that in a minute. As long as it goes up and in this way. We'll take all of the looseness out. And it shouldn't be too ripply. If it is, as I say, I might take those two out and rework them. I'll have a look in a sec. You know, it's one of those things, I'm going to take them out and then push it back in so that there's no pleat there. You could leave it. It's just that I get a bit funky over some things. And of course these were the first two that I put in, so they're not always in the right place. Pop that forward and then I've got a pleat that side and a pleat this side, which makes it more even. And again, I'm just going to pull the bottom cloth over and into place. Hides everything. I'm really working this side in because I don't like it. And I'm actually going to pull it as tight as I can so it comes up to the line. I'm thinking that that might bring it in better than it was. You just have to work things out. So here's the top stitching. Just try to make it as even as possible. And that's what it looks like from the side. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you've gained some insight on how to do a bench seat. It's very similar to a chair seat. I haven't shown you how to do the borders on this kind of chair seat before, I don't think. No, don't seem to have remembered videoing one exactly like it. Some thumbs up, let me see how I'm doing. Hit the bell button and the subscribe button so that you can hear more from me. And in the meantime, take care. See you later. Ciao. I have help today. Sometimes you just got to be close to mama, don't you, eh? Silly Billy. That cat is so used to me working that he doesn't jump off when I'm knocking the furniture. You're doing my head in, cat. No.